Hi everyone, welcome back to the Casual Watch Review channel. So in this week's episode, we're finally getting around to doing the full review of the Maen Hudson. I'd previously done the unboxing a few weeks ago now, so I'll leave a link down to that below in the description, or you can hit the little eye icon at the top of your screens if you're watching on your tablet device or your computer. If anyone's not familiar with the Maen Hudson, Maen is actually a micro brand, and this Hudson was an edition that they actually put on Kickstarter. So I was one of the early backers on Kickstarter, along with many other people. So a couple of months went by and the watches were released and then shipped out to all of the backers at the time. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks with the Maen. So what we'll do now is we'll flip the camera down and do the review, and then at the end of this, if you leave me a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what you think of the watch. Anyway, let's flip the camera around and get started. The first thing that when I first received it, the thing that I was most worried about was the size, the 38mm. I thought it was going to be a bit small. It's certainly smaller than other watches that I'd been wearing recently. So this Spinnaker Bradner, for example. If I just take this off, I'm going to put it on the wrist because I was impressed with actually how comfortable it was. And the size was something I got used to. As you can see, it fits my wrist really well. It's very comfortable. This metal band is really comfortable as well. The clasp, which we'll be talking about shortly. It has a really nice wrist presence to it. As you can see, very thin profile on here. It's only got a 10.5mm thickness. The thing that first struck me about the watch when I received it was the dial, and that is something that I still like to this day. It has this gorgeous sandblasted black dial and this white reholt. The black dial has a real depth to it, has these applied indices and this white reholt. I'm really glad that I got the white one. They do a black version of this as well, but the white one makes it look like a measurement scale. I'm a huge fan of that actually. They've done an awesome job on the dial. The printing is sharp. The Maen logo here, maybe that would have been nice if it had been applied, but even so, the printing is sharp. The date window is nicely beveled. The date is clear white. They also do a no date version as well if the date is something that you don't like on a watch. The hands to me are a knockout. I love the hands. It's what appealed to me from the watch when I first got it. This kind of like Art Deco style hands with the red. Now these hands, coincidentally, I've noticed these on the new range of Bell & Ross dive watches. So I don't know who's copying who here, but I certainly noticed it on the Maen first. Very similar hands on the Bell & Ross there. Very thin profile. It's also very light as well, and it has the 20mm lug width on here. I've really enjoyed wearing this watch for the last 2 weeks. It has a very classic look to it. Now, I only noticed this when I was setting my little setup here before, but if you notice, yeah, very similar to the vintage Rolex there. Also, the vintage Tudor big crowns as well resemble this style. So I like the attention to detail. They've obviously thought about vintage watches and how to do a modern interpretation of one instead of a direct copy. The finishing overall, there's a few little things that I'll go over, but the finishing overall, the case and everything like that is a quality polishing job. The brush parts, very nicely machined and finished. The back case here is like laser etched. This is the closed case back, so it has the 200-meter water resistance. I also do have the sapphire case back as well, so I can change them up. They offered some of the parts as an added extra, so I thought that was a really nice touch. The watch uses the ETA 2824-2 movement, and they've regulated it to the Ella Bore standard. Now, I thought Ella Bore was one of the top ones, but doing my research for this video, it's actually the second one. So you have a standard, the Ella Bore, the top, and then the COSC one. So the Ella Bore, I mean, mine is gaining 6 seconds a day, and that's perfectly fine by me. That's what I'd expect. And this watch, considering its price point, it's around about the $450 to $500 US mark. The other watches that have this movement, significantly more. The Hamilton on the more entry-level range use this 2824-2 movement. Right up to the Tudor Black Bay uses this. Also the smaller Black Bay versions as well without the bezels. And the Sin, the legendary Sin range, the 556 also uses this movement. So very impressed that they've gone to the expense of adding it to this micro brand watch. I'm a big fan of the crown. I know a couple of people who own this watch have made comments about the clasp being one of the sort of the more cheaper feeling elements of it. But actually, I'm fine with that. It's light. It's never come undone. It's got a nice snap to it. I've never had a problem with it. I'm wearing one white glove, guys. I know some of you don't mind the white glove and some of you don't like it. So I've got a 50-50 chance here, but I've already had to refilm some of this because I was getting fingerprints on it. Let's do some quick measurements here. So we have a 38mm case. We have the 20mm lugs, and then we have a 46mm from lug to lug. So that's what gives it that really nice wrist presence. Also, it's got a 10.5mm depth. And as mentioned before, it's using the ETA 2824-2 movement. So let's discuss some of the things that I really like about this watch. A huge fan of the dial. I love the depth of the dial. The hands are a standout for me. The finishing of the case is done really well. They've done a quality job of the case construction here. Let's just discuss some of the things that I think could actually have been done a lot better on this watch. The first off, and many people who own this watch have commented on this, these first editions, these Kickstarter ones, the bezel is extremely stiff. I've got white gloves on here, but even if I wasn't, it's very hard to move. You really have to get your nails into it. Now, I think this is a combination of maybe the spring is not correct for this thinner bezel, and the fact that the bezel itself, this metal is molded on here, so that the grip is molded instead of machined into it, and I think that's causing the problem because you really have to get your nail into it. Now, Maen have responded to this and said that it will loosen up over time. Now, it doesn't bother me too much because I consider this a dress dive watch. So that's one of the things I like about it. So I won't be using the bezel for any kind of like diving or anything. Although I do like to have a bezel for timing things. So that's certainly something that I think they could improve on. Also, this screw down crown here. So they've done a good job of putting a screw down crown onto it. That's awesome. The problem I have with it is when I'm screwing it back in, let me just take my glove off here. When I'm screwing it back in, annoyingly, I'm almost all the time cross-threading it, or starting to cross-thread it, I should say. So there, you have to really line it up properly. There, I've cross-threaded it again. Let me just try and hit it on. So there we go. So it's on, but you really have to be careful with it. I don't know whether it's just my particular model that's the problem, but it does have it. Just be careful of that if you're going to buy one of these watches, not to cross-thread it. I've cross-threaded it countless times, and that is a little annoyance for me. And considering this is their first Kickstarter one, I can't wait to see what they're going to come up with next in terms of the dive watch. They clearly understand vintage watches. They clearly understand case design. They've used the ETA movement in there, and they've kept the price point extremely reasonable in comparison to the competition. Anyway, guys, let's go back to the studio. That was my review of the Maen Hudson here. A bit of a mixed bag, but overall a really nice little watch, and I think really good value for money. But I'm more interested in what you guys think. So if you leave a comment in the comment section down below, you can get me on any of my social media links here, or you can contact me on thecasualwatchreviewer@gmail.com. If this is one of the first videos that you're watching of mine, I'd really love it if you subscribed. Just hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell icon. As always, guys, I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you all next time on the Casual Watch Review channel. Thanks, guys. Bye.